The lost city beneath the waves. Whispers in the depths. The Mediterranean Sea has always been a keeper of secrets. Empires rose and fell along its coasts, ships laden with treasures sank beneath its surface, and myths passed down through generations spoke of wonders long forgotten. But none of those whispers were as persistent, or as alluring, as the legend of Atlantis. For centuries, scholars debated whether it was a myth created by Plato, a moral allegory warning mankind against hubris, or an echo of something real, a civilization that once thrived and then disappeared in a single cataclysm. Most dismissed it, but for Dr. Elena Vassos, a marine archaeologist from Athens, the legend was more than a story. It was a riddle, and riddles begged to be solved. Elena had dedicated her life to studying submerged ruins scattered across the Mediterranean, from forgotten ports in Crete to sunken temples off the coast of Sicily. She had seen mosaics shimmering beneath the waves, walked among collapsed columns hidden in kelp forests, and studied maps of lands lost to earthquakes and floods. But nothing had prepared her for the call she received one humid summer evening. The voice on the other end belonged to Adrian Costa, a wealthy Greek shipping magnate with an obsession for history. His tone carried both urgency and excitement. "Dr. Vassos," he said, "my divers have found something. Something impossible. I think you will want to see it." Within days, Elena found herself aboard the Aegean Star, Adrian's private research vessel, drifting off the coast of Santorini. The island itself was born of catastrophe. Its great volcanic eruption 3,600 years ago had destroyed Minoan civilization and left behind whispers that it might have inspired Plato's tale. The ship's deck bustled with activity. Engineers checked sonar equipment, divers adjusted their rebreathers, and cameras streamed live feeds to glowing monitors. Adrian greeted Elena with a firm handshake, his sharp blue eyes shining. "You are about to witness history," he said, guiding her toward the screens. The sonar images were unmistakable. Beneath the waves, hidden under centuries of silt and volcanic rock, stretched a geometric pattern far too precise to be natural. Rectangles and concentric circles formed the unmistakable outline of a city plan: roads, plazas, perhaps even temples. Elena's breath caught. "It's massive," she whispered. Adrian nodded, his smile tight with pride. "And deeper than any city we know of. Too deep to have been built by man, unless the seas swallowed it." That night, as the sun melted into the horizon and the sea shimmered with bronze and purple hues, Elena stood alone at the rail. The waves lapped quietly, concealing whatever lay beneath. She felt the weight of the myth pressing on her. Could this be Atlantis, or was it another city erased by time? The next morning, the first dive began. The water closed around Elena as she descended. Shafts of sunlight pierced the blue depths, fading into a dim, endless expanse. Her heart pounded inside her wetsuit as she followed the dive leader, Marcus Hale, a former Navy diver with steady nerves and a habit of humming softly to himself. At 200 feet, the seabed revealed itself. And there, rising from the sand like a ghost, were walls of stone. Not jagged, not broken, carved. Perfectly aligned blocks, some etched with strange patterns that glowed faintly under their lights. Elena's radio crackled. "Tell me I'm not hallucinating," Marcus said. "You're not," Elena breathed. Her gloved hand brushed across a column half buried in sand, its surface carved with spirals unlike any known script. The divers pressed deeper, their lights sweeping across what had once been a plaza. Statues lay toppled, faces eroded but still regal. A massive stairway led downward into a yawning trench, as though inviting them further. But what struck Elena most was the silence. The sea always carried sounds, distant wails, shifting currents, the hum of their own equipment. Here, it was different. The water felt still, heavy, as though it were holding its breath. One statue loomed ahead, upright despite the centuries. It depicted a figure robed in flowing garments, a crown of sharp points upon its head. Its eyes, though worn, seemed to follow them. In its outstretched hands, it held a sphere carved with rings, circles within circles, like the city map itself. Elena's chest tightened. "This isn't Greek," she whispered. "This is older." They returned to the surface with footage that stunned the entire crew. As the divers removed their masks and staggered onto the deck, Adrian was already demanding answers. Elena replayed the recordings on the main screen. The plaza, the statues, the spirals, it was undeniable. "This isn't a port. This is a city. And not Minoan," not Phoenician, not anything we've documented. This, she hesitated, knowing the weight of her words. This could be Atlantis. The word sent a ripple through the crew. Some laughed nervously, others crossed themselves. Adrian simply smiled, as though the confirmation he had craved all his life had finally been spoken. But late that night, as the waves slapped gently against the hull, Elena awoke to a sound. A low hum, deep and resonant, rising from beneath the sea. She stepped onto the deck, the air cool and damp. The water shimmered strangely, ripples forming without wind. And then she saw it. Far below, in the deep blue darkness, faint lights flickered, pale, shifting glows pulsing like the heartbeat of something vast and alive. She froze. The city was not silent after all. It was awake. The labyrinth of echoes. The next morning, the ship buzzed with restless energy. The entire crew had seen the footage. Columns rising from the seabed, statues staring across centuries, the unmistakable design of a city beneath the waves. They whispered about it over breakfast, eyes flicking to the sea as though expecting the ruins to surface on their own. Dr. Elena Vasso stood before the monitors, reviewing the dive footage frame by frame. Every detail pulled her deeper into obsession. The spirals etched into stone, the concentric designs repeating in walls and statues, the strange sphere clutched by the crowned figure. It was more than decoration. It was a language. Adrian Costa appeared at her side, his expensive linen shirt already salt-stained from sea spray. "You saw the lights last night, didn't you?" he asked. Elena hesitated. "I saw something. It could have been bioluminescent plankton, or a reflection. Or the city itself," Adrian interrupted, his voice sharp. His obsession burned too brightly to be hidden. "This is no mere ruin, Doctor. We are standing at the threshold of myth made real." Before Elena could reply, Marcus Hale entered, carrying a tangle of diving gear. "Weather's clear," he said. "If we're going back down, now's the time." The second dive was more dangerous. The trench leading deeper into the ruins was narrow, its edges crumbling with centuries of erosion. Marcus led the way, guiding the team's lights through the darkness. The seabed sloped sharply until it revealed a vast, circular chamber carved directly into the rock. Elena's eyes widened. "A subterranean plaza," she whispered. The chamber's floor was covered in mosaics, still intact despite the weight of the sea. The tiles shimmered with faint iridescence, patterns of spirals and stars that seemed to shift when the divers moved. At the chamber's center stood a broken pillar, its top shattered, its base carved with symbols, rows of unfamiliar glyphs. Elena hovered before them, her heart pounding. She traced the carvings with her gloved hand, recording every detail. This is a script we've never catalogued. Look at the curves, the symmetry. It's like nothing from Greece, Egypt, or Mesopotamia." Marcus tilted his head. "Then who built it?" Elena's voice came over the comms, hushed despite the water. "Someone older." As they moved deeper, they found tunnels leading away from the plaza, hallways carved with impossible precision, their walls smooth as glass. The deeper they swam, the stranger the architecture became. Columns curved in spirals rather than straight lines, arches looped in overlapping circles, and the very stone seemed fused with a crystalline material that glowed faintly in the divers' lights. Then they found the mural. It stretched across an entire wall, carved in relief and painted in pigments that defied time. It depicted a great city rising from the sea, towering spires, bridges arcing between concentric islands, ships with sails unlike any known design. People filled the scene, tall and regal, clad in robes and crowns. Above them hovered a great sphere of light, radiating beams across the city. But the next panel darkened. The sphere cracked, beams turning into jagged bolts. The sea rose in massive waves, swallowing the city. Figures fell, arms raised in terror. At the bottom of the mural, survivors clutched fragments of the broken sphere as they fled into darkness. Marcus broke the silence. "That's a doomsday story if I ever saw one." Elena stared at the glowing pigments. "It's a record," she whispered. "They're telling us what happened. A city destroyed by its own power." The team swam further, but the waters grew restless. Currents twisted unnaturally, pulling at their fins, pushing them back as though the ruins themselves resisted their presence. Elena fought against it, determination burning in her chest. At the end of a long corridor, they found a sealed doorway. It was circular, a massive stone disc etched with spirals converging on a single point. And at its center, embedded into the rock, was a crystal, perfectly round, glowing faintly with pale blue light. Elena reached out instinctively, her hand trembling. "Wait," Marcus warned. "We don't know what it does." Her glove brushed the surface. The crystal pulsed. For an instant, the water vibrated with a deep hum that resonated in their bones. Then the disc shifted, grinding slowly open. A rush of bubbles surged as water filled the space beyond. Through the widening gap, they glimpsed something impossible, a vast chamber lined with towering statues, each one holding a crystal sphere glowing in unison. The light bathed the water in an otherworldly glow, illuminating designs in the floor that pulsed like veins of energy. Elena gasped into her mask. This isn't just architecture. This is technology, ancient, but alive. Suddenly, the water grew colder. Their lights flickered, and in the distance, beyond the glowing statues, a shadow moved. Something was down there, watching. Marcus signaled to retreat, his instincts sharp. But Elena lingered, torn between fear and the hunger for answers. She turned her camera toward the shadow, recording, capturing what no human eye was meant to see. The shape shifted, massive and sinuous, gliding between the statues. For a heartbeat, she thought it was a sea creature. But then it straightened, rising higher, and the outline of a humanoid figure emerged. Tall, broad-shouldered, its eyes glowing faintly like the crystals. "Elena," Marcus barked, grabbing her arm. "We're leaving, now." The team swam hard, hearts hammering as the doorway rumbled shut behind them. The hum faded, the current stilled, and silence returned. Back on the surface, Elena collapsed onto the deck, tearing off her mask, gasping for air. Adrian leaned over her, eyes wild. "What did you see? Tell me." She struggled to find words. "It's not abandoned," she whispered. "Something down there survived." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Marcus scowled, muttering under his breath. "We weren't supposed to be there." That night, as the ship swayed under a sky full of stars, Elena reviewed the footage alone. And there it was, captured clearly for a brief moment, a figure, glowing faintly, staring at them from the depths. She shivered, realizing the truth. Atlantis had not only been real. Its guardians were still waiting. The guardians, oath. Sleep was restless aboard the Aegean Star. The crew whispered uneasily, avoiding each other's eyes. Some refused to dive again, muttering about curses and sea spirits. Others stared into the waves as though expecting something to rise at any moment. Dr. Elena Vassos barely slept at all. She replayed the footage over and over, pausing on the figure that moved in the shadows of the great chamber. It was humanoid, but far larger, its proportions unsettlingly perfect. The faint glow of its eyes burned in her mind. It was no trick of light. Something lived within those ruins. At dawn, she was summoned by Adrian Costa. He was pacing the deck, his face pale but his eyes fever bright. "You saw it too," he said without preamble. Elena nodded. "A guardian," she whispered. "That's what it must be." Adrian's lips curled into a hungry smile. "Guarding what?" She hesitated. "The spheres. Whatever power they held, it destroyed the city once. Maybe they feared it falling into the wrong hands again." Adrian leaned close, his voice low. "Doctor, you don't understand. This is not a warning, it's an opportunity. The world above is dying. Our empires fade, our seas rise, our wars never end. Imagine what we could do with the secrets of Atlantis." Elena recoiled. "We should preserve, not exploit. If that power sank a civilization, what do you think it would do to ours?" But Adrian only turned away, his hands clasped behind his back. His obsession was fixed, unshakable. Despite the tension, Elena convinced Marcus and a smaller team to dive again. She needed answers. They followed a different route this time, avoiding the sealed chamber where the figure had appeared. They discovered a tunnel leading into what seemed like a library. Stone shelves carved into the walls held tablets of black stone, etched with spirals and glyphs. Many were cracked, but some remained intact. Elena's hands trembled as she recorded them. This could be their written history. One tablet caught her eye. Unlike the others, it was carved with both the Atlantean spirals and another script, one she recognized. Linear A, the undeciphered language of the Minoans. She gasped. They were trying to communicate with outsiders. The Minoans must have known of them. As she traced the spirals, a pattern emerged. It was not just writing. It was a code, mathematical in structure. Repeated symbols corresponded with numbers, ratios, celestial alignments. It described cycles of the stars, the movements of the sea, and at its core, references to the heart of the city, a crystal sphere said to hold the energy of the world itself. Alina's voice shook. This is it, the source of their power. The spheres were fragments, but the heart was whole. Marcus muttered darkly, and it tore them apart. As they explored further, the water grew warm. A low hum pulsed through the stone, vibrating in their bones. The tunnels opened into another vast chamber, this one shaped like a dome. In the center floated a massive crystal sphere, suspended between pillars of glowing stone. It pulsed faintly, as though breathing. Alina's eyes widened behind her mask. The heart. She swam closer, awestruck. The sphere was alive with swirling light, colors shifting like storm clouds. Her hand lifted, trembling, reaching instinctively. And then the water moved. From the shadows emerged figures, 3 of them. Tall, humanoid, their forms sculpted as if from living stone and crystal. Their eyes glowed faintly blue, and their movements were slow, deliberate, regal. They did not swim so much as glide, as though the water bent to their will. Marcus swore under his breath. The guardians. The figures spread out, blocking the divers from the sphere. One raised its hand, and the water vibrated with a deep, resonant tone. Elena felt it echo in her chest, a voice without words but heavy with meaning. She understood it not with her mind, but her soul. Leave. This power is not yours. Elena's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to speak, to explain that she sought knowledge, not conquest. She placed her hand over her heart, bowing slightly in the water. The guardian tilted its head, studying her. For a moment, the hum softened, almost curious. But then another vibration filled the chamber, louder, discordant. The divers turned. A new team had entered the ruins, Adrian's men, armed with cutting tools and cameras. Adrian himself swam at the front, his eyes locked greedily on the heart. No, Elena screamed into her comms. You'll destroy everything. The guardians. Glow brightened, their tones rising in warning. But Adrian ignored them, signaling his men to advance. One diver lifted a plasma cutter, aiming at the sphere's anchoring pillars. The chamber erupted in chaos. The guardians surged forward, their movements blindingly fast, the water around them thrashing like a storm. Energy pulsed from their bodies, knocking the cutters from the men's hands. One diver was flung violently against a wall, his light extinguished. Elena and Marcus were caught in the currents, spinning helplessly. Through the chaos, Elena locked eyes with the lead guardian. For a heartbeat, she saw something ancient in its gaze, sorrow, not anger. A warning, not vengeance. And then the heart pulsed. A wave of energy rippled outward, shaking the chamber. Cracks split the walls, mosaics shattering. Sediment rained down like black snow. The guardians spread their arms, trying to contain the pulse, their bodies glowing brighter with strain. Elena grabbed Marcus, pulling him toward the exit. We have to go, now. Behind them, Adrian still swam desperately toward the heart, screaming through his comms, his voice distorted by static. It's mine. It belongs to me. The last thing Elena saw before the tunnel collapsed was the guardians closing ranks around the heart, their light flaring brilliantly as the ruins trembled. They barely made it back to the surface. The sea boiled with strange currents, the Aegean star rocking violently as the ruins shifted beneath. Elena was hauled aboard, gasping, coughing seawater, her eyes wild with terror and awe. Adrian's men surfaced behind her, battered and shaken, but Adrian himself did not appear. The ocean swallowed him, along with his ambition. Elena lay on the deck, staring at the dark waves. They're protecting it, she whispered hoarsely. Not for themselves, but for us. Because we're not ready. Marcus sat beside her, silent, his face grim. Far below, in the dark, the guardians, glow faded once more, returning to their eternal vigil. The heart pulsed faintly, like the heartbeat of the earth itself, waiting, watching, enduring. The price of truth. The sea was restless for days after the collapse. Waves struck the Aegean star with unnatural force, as though the ocean itself was warning them to leave. The crew grew silent, haunted by what they had seen. Some demanded they abandon the expedition immediately, while others whispered of Adrian, how his obsession had dragged them all to the edge of death. Elena sat alone on the stern, watching the horizon. She could still feel the hum of the heart in her bones, like a ghostly vibration lingering inside her. When she closed her eyes, she saw the guardians, those towering, luminous figures, and the sorrow etched in their movements as they held back the sphere's fury. Marcus joined her one evening, dropping heavily into the chair beside her. His face was sunburned and weary. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, he said, "We should tell the world. People need to know what's down there." Elena shook her head slowly. And what would they do with that knowledge? Governments would descend on it like vultures. Corporations would strip it apart. They'd find a way to weaponize it. Marcus, you saw Adrian. Multiply him by 1,000, and that's what humanity is. Marcus clenched his jaw, then looked away. So we bury it. Pretend it was never real. Her hands tightened on the railing. Not bury. Guard. Just as they do. Despite her words, evidence of Atlantis had already been recorded. Cameras captured fragments of murals, inscriptions, and the glowing sphere. Even though most equipment was lost in the collapse, enough survived to spark controversy for decades if released. That night, Elena made a decision. She gathered the team in the mess hall, the air heavy with salt and exhaustion. "We all saw what happened," she began. "We all know what waits below. But listen to me, if we reveal it, we won't be protecting history. We'll be handing over a weapon. Atlantis wasn't destroyed by accident. It was destroyed by hubris, by people who thought they could command the forces of creation. Do we want to repeat that?" Some nodded grimly, others protested. "We risked our lives for this. The world deserves to know." Elena's voice rose, sharp with passion. "The world deserves to live." Silence fell. The crew looked to Marcus, as if seeking the final word. He leaned back, arms crossed, eyes on Elena. At last, he nodded once. "She's right. Some truths are too dangerous." Reluctantly, the room agreed. They sailed back toward Crete under heavy skies. Storms followed them, as if the sea itself chased them from its secrets. The nights were filled with uneasy dreams, visions of drowned cities, chanting voices, and endless spirals of light. Elena often woke drenched in sweat, the echo of the guardians' hum still vibrating in her chest. On their final night at sea, Marcus found her on deck again, staring at the stars. "You're not at peace with this, are you?" he asked softly. She smiled faintly, though it was weary. "Part of me wants to scream it from the rooftops. To finally prove the myths were real. But another part, the part that remembers the guardians' eyes, knows this is bigger than us." Marcus studied her, then asked, "So what now?" Elena turned her gaze toward the horizon, where the sea and sky melted into darkness. "We keep the secret, but we also keep the memory. Maybe someday, humanity will be ready. Maybe someday, the city will rise again." Months later, back in Athens, Elena stood before a panel of historians and sponsors. The official report of the expedition was deliberately vague: ruins found, structures too unstable to recover, many records lost to storms. Nothing about the heart, nothing about the guardians. Privately, she archived every scrap of footage and inscription in a hidden vault at the university. To the world, Atlantis remained a myth. But she knew better. Years passed. Whispers of her failed expedition circulated. Some called her a fraud, others pitied her. She let them believe what they wished. Better a fraud than the architect of another downfall. Yet at night, she often returned to the dreams. Dreams of luminous halls, of a city alive with song, of the guardians standing eternal vigil. Sometimes she felt the hum again, deep within her bones, like a heartbeat waiting beneath the waves. And sometimes, she thought she heard a whisper in that hum. A promise, or perhaps a warning. Not yet. One summer evening, Elena walked the shoreline near Knossos. The tide was unusually low, and the rocks were slick with seaweed. She paused, gazing out at the endless blue. For a moment, she swore she saw something shimmer far out at sea, a flicker of light beneath the water, too symmetrical to be natural. Her heart pounded. She blinked, and it was gone. But she smiled, a secret smile only she understood. Atlantis was not dead, it slept. And someday, when the world was wiser, or desperate enough, the ocean would unveil it once more. Until then, she would guard the truth, as the guardians guarded the heart. Sparkle's epilogue. Centuries ago, the city had fallen because of arrogance. Its survivors had bound their guardians to protect the heart, swearing an oath that the world above would not share their fate. That oath endured. Now, as the tide shifted under a rising moon, the great dome beneath the waves pulsed faintly with light. The guardians stirred, their eyes glowing in the deep. The heart beat slowly, patiently. The city waited, because myths are not dead things. They are promises, and Atlantis had promised it would return.